We all know that Brexit isn't going to plan. The Conservative Party is still tearing itself to bits over how to make the most of the so-called Brexit freedoms they earned. The UK and EU are still arguing over the Northern Ireland Protocol, and Brexiteers are still arguing over what constitutes a true Brexit. Public enthusiasm for Brexit has waned, and now a growing faction of the population considers it to be a mistake. We're going to taking a look at what the UK currently thinks of Brexit. Let's start by taking a look at what people think by a poll asking the UK in hindsight, do you think Britain was right or wrong to vote to leave the EU? 64% of people thought that Britain was wrong to leave the EU, compared to just 28% who thought it was the right decision, giving the wrong decision. An enormous 36-point lead, and on top of that literally every constituency in Great Britain apart from one now thinks that Brexit was a mistake. So out of 632 constituencies in Great Britain, only still thinks that Brexit was the right decision. Every other constituency in Great Britain thinks that Brexit was the wrong decision. When people bring up this polling, Brexiteers and pollsters will point out that the fact that people regret Brexit doesn't necessarily mean they want to rejoin. Other polling suggests that while support for rejoining isn't as high, a healthy majority of Brits now are in favor of rejoining the EU. Since October last year, the Rejoin group has basically doubled its lead over Stay Out. Looking at why the public enthusiasm for Brexit is still declining, it's probably mainly because Brexit has correlated with a period of exceptional political and economic chaos in the UK. There's basically no sign of things getting better politically since the Brexit vote. Britain has become a bit of an international laughingstock. We've gone through 4 prime ministers and 2 elections in just 6 years, and the ruling Conservative Party has been beset by vicious infighting between Conservatives and the hardcore Brexit wing of the party. Economically, Brexit has also coincided with an unprecedented period of stagnation across the British economy. Keep in mind that the UK's economic woes aren't exclusively down to Brexit. The UK economy was struggling with miserable levels of productivity and GDP growth even before Brexit. Europe in general is also having a tough time adapting to post-pandemic inflation and Ukraine-related disruption to gas supplies. Nonetheless, Brexit certainly hasn't helped things for Britain. Worth mentioning is that the EU no longer looks quite as bureaucratic or useless as it did back in 2016. Back then, it was easy to paint the EU as a useless Brussels bureaucracy that spent its time stifling the democratic will of the British people with paperwork. For most of its existence, the EU has been excessively bureaucratic and insufficiently dynamic. However, in the last year or so, that has definitely changed, and the EU has responded remarkably well to the various crises which have affected Europe. With COVID, the EU relaxed its attitude to debt sharing to agree to a new recovery fund which includes so much money that countries like Italy are genuinely struggling to use it all. Ukraine sanctions and weapons deliveries have been coordinated at the EU level, and the EU has displayed remarkable unity throughout the crisis, which is one of the main reasons that Ukraine is so keen on joining the bloc in the future. The newfound geopolitical significance has increased regrets among Brits, and regardless, it's definitely harder for Brexiteers to dismiss Brussels as just a stuffy bureaucracy. So what to do with this? For Sunak, the obvious move, given that people are less keen on Brexit, would be for him to soften his position and maybe move towards a deeper trading relationship with the EU. And although it was totally unimaginable a few years ago, rejoining eventually doesn't look so bad anymore. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.